Today's Tuesday, May 19th. We're at Collin Campbell's house. Been doing some flight testing for the Bearhawk Model 5, which is Bob's most recent design to fly. The clouds and weather have not been cooperating, although they're starting to look a little bit better for us to get up above the clouds and do some cruise testing, see what kinds of fuel burn and airspeed indications and resulting true airspeeds we're going to get at the higher altitudes. We've got several flights in below 3,000 feet. This is Collin's strip. This is Collin.
Yep, that's me.
Collin Campbell has built a Bearhawk 4-place, a Bearhawk Patrol, a Bearhawk LSA, and now the Bearhawk 5. What do we know about the Bearhawk 5?
Yeah, the Bearhawk 5 is the biggest in the line of the Bearhawks. I like to think of it as the Bearhawk Grizzly, the biggest and the baddest bear of all.
There you go. There you go.
But it's a Model 5. It's the Bearhawk 5.
It seems like in a lot of ways it's a natural progression of Bob's lineup to go in the larger direction as well as the smaller direction. Do you remember what size engines Bob has specified as the minimums? And
I think the 6-cylinder engine is supposed to be the smallest engine, I believe.
so probably a parallel valve 540.
Parallel valve 540 is probably going to be more popular, probably.
Gotcha. This one, on the other hand, is the angle valve IO 580,
IO 580, yes.
which we're thinking is 315 horsepower.
315 horsepower, right.
With the Hartzell 82-inch 3-blade Trailblazer prop.
Right.
Do you mind if we take a look under the cowl?
Yeah, let's do that. Let me open it up a little bit for you here.
The Bearhawk 5 uses the same wings as the Model B 4-place, but the fuselage, tail, and just about all the other parts are different. It has the riblet airfoil.
As you can see, it's pretty full in there.
It is pretty full.
It's a lot of engine.
And we know that this is the first prototype airplane. There might be some changes to the production line. We didn't really know exactly how the CG was going to work out until this week when we started actually loading and flying and seeing how the airplane's working out. Collin does this beautiful work. The cooling has been exceptional. Oil temperatures have been right around 180 to 190 degrees. Cylinder head temps have been in the low 300s.
I wish we could see the air servo has a K&N filter here, and Bob's designed and machined a special adapter to make that work. It's pretty ingenious. I think you'll probably like that. I wish we had a picture of that. But
We'll get a picture at some point.
some time, I've got a picture.
Down in there somewhere.
Somewhere.
So let's see, what do we know about this design? Bob
Yeah.
dated the very first page of the plans December 2009.
2009? I think, yes.
So that's way back. And so we know he had already learned the lessons of the low drag of the riblet airfoil, profile shape of the horizontal stabilizer, and that sort of thing.
Right.
And then he delivered the plans to a local builder in Virginia, and he framed up the fuselage.
Right.
Did he also build any of the tail feathers?
The tail feathers were tack welded together like this. The fuselage was just tack welded all of it. There's a lot of parts that weren't on it yet. They're just a basic frame.
Gotcha.
And the tail feathers had been started. They weren't complete, but
And then the wings had come out of the factory in
wings
Mexico.
came from Mexico, right?
And that came to your shop. Wonder when, you remember when that was?
Well, it was about 2 years ago, about the first part of June, I think.
Okay,
Middle of May. Around this time 2 years ago, anyway. I had to look on the calendar.
gotcha. And so from that you went to having to make some internal modifications to the wing
Right.
to make them conform to the plans. You said there was a lot of checking of the plans to make sure that everything was just so.
Right. Yeah, there were some changes to the fuselage. Some of the tubing weren't quite the way Bob wanted them on the plans, so we changed those.
The fuselage is quite a bit bigger than the 4-place by airplane standards.
A little bit bigger.
Did we say it's a foot longer in the?
Longer maybe, and it's 2 inches wider at the cabin.
Okay.
Cessna 182 windshield. They said that too.
Whereas the four-place uses the Cessna 170 windshield. Yeah. There's a little bit different shape to the vertical stabilizer, a little different profile. It's a little more upright,
Right.
or taller, I guess we could say.
I think the whole tail itself is bigger. I think there's bigger surfaces here and there's north, I think.
Yeah, they're definitely a lot wider,
A lot wider and deeper.
bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Bob says he used 7/8 diameter tube on the tail structure on the four-place, and this is 1 inch.
Right. I think it's 1 inch, right?
There's several tubing substitutions in the fuselage because of the extra strength required, and that worked out to a total weight gain, Bob says, of about 30 pounds of steel.
Right.
Collin, how was the empty weight on this plane? Do you remember what it was?
1512 on this one.
Which is really good,
It's pretty good.
because that's really on par with an empty weight for a four-place Bearhawk,
Right.
but we have a 3,000 pound gross weight as opposed to 2,500.
All the tubing in the landing gear and the axles are heavier. I think those axles are 3/16. It's .188 or just 3/16.
3/16 wall thickness.
Wall thickness, right?
Wow.
And the tubing on the landing gear is 065. Of course, they've got longer shock struts. I think they're 10-inch long springs instead of 8-inch. So everything's made to carry the weight.
So beyond the wings, there's not really a lot of common parts. Doesn't sound like.
Not a whole lot. Yeah, there's a lot of changes in the fuselage. It's just a different animal. It's a different airplane.
It has the very large cabin door of the four-place type, but it's also even larger. It's longer,
It's a lot bigger.
longer and wider. Yeah. Would you mind opening it up for us? We can get a good view of it. We still have some ballast in the airplane for flight testing. Right now, this prototype has a box in the back on the left side, and that is semi-permanent ballast, if you will. Let's take a look in there and see how those steel weights work out. It's not clear yet whether a production airplane will need that.
There's 4 38-pound steel weights there with handles that can be. You can lift those out.
Yesterday, while we were establishing the forward limits, we flew with just 2 of those.
That's right.
But that's probably going to be forward of the recommended CG limit for most applications with the way this airplane is configured. It has a very heavy engine, and the firewall location and everything like that is still to be determined in the final plans by Bob. Bob's been eagerly waiting to hear this flight testing, or hear these flight testing results so that he can finalize the plans. He would usually be doing this testing himself, but he's just not up for the travel. He's recovering from an ankle injury.
Yeah.
Was there anything different about building this airplane, Collin, versus the other 3 Bearhawks that you built?
Well, this was more of a challenge because we were exploring a lot of new territory, and a lot of things were in the research and development stage, and a lot of phone calls with Bob, and how do we do this, and this needs to be tweaked a little bit, and so we had to do some thinking about it, some research.
Yeah.
And normally Bob would do that himself, you know, he was right there ready to
Sure.
redraw some plans, and so.
And I suppose, too, you would also have other builders who've
Right.
done it first. This was being a prototype.
This is the first one.
Yeah. You said that you had to modify the flap lever. Let's get a good look at that.
It was interesting, I think. In the past, a lot of people have complained about having to be able to reach this flap lever, but as you can see, it's up off the floor about 4 or 5 inches, something like that.
Whereas on the four-place, that lever is, you can barely get your fingers under it.
Fingers under it,
Yeah.
And so, you know, you can pull the flaps down, but you can't do it with the door.
Oh, yeah.
open back. You have to be
It's the
careful
door.
with that.
Yeah. Oops. There we go.
And that's one thing we need to remember. But and it's a whole lot easier to reach.
Yeah. The ergonomics in the air have been
It's
fine.
just much, much better.
Yeah.
And the fuel selector needs to be there where you can reach it. It's just off the center a little bit.
Yeah.
It's within easy reach. And so those are some nice improvements, I think.
And there's some interesting linkage work going on some underneath there. It's a sort of a hybrid between
Yeah.
the patrol style flap
Yeah.
lever and
Yeah.
four-place.
That's basically a patrol flap lever with just a little bit of modification on the offset. I think it's a little less offset, but other than that, it's the same quadrant, the same handle and everything. And it goes down past the side of the elevator bell crank, just barely passes it. And
This particular airplane's built pretty plain and simple and light. which is a good thing.
Not a lot of instruments on the panel, as you can see. There's not a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, it's basically a VFR panel, no...
Yeah, just what you need to fly in VFR conditions. So.
Yeah. It has a nice skylight.
Nice skylight.
What did you use for covering, Colin?
Well, this is the standard stitz, I call it, but it's polyfiber now. It's a medium weight fabric with a polytone finish. You know,
so it looks like you've got interior covering on the inside of the tubes on the walls, but not on the roof.
Nothing on the headliner, and it's limited. Nothing forward of the front seats is open.
But
And
basically,
the wing roots are open. I left it open, so it's minimal.
looking at the
You can see everything.
inside of the boot cowl when we look at the side of the...
Some people bring the covering all the way down forward here, and that's okay. It's optional. You can do that.
Sure.
And some people like to cover the wing roots. The insides of the doors are not covered, so it's just it's pretty basic.
That's part of what keeps the weight down
Keeps the weight down. Yeah.
and the performance up.
Right. Those are all little things.
Today we took off with 3,000 pounds gross weight, which was all the ballast you see in the airplane currently, and all of that ballast over there too.
Right.
Who knew flight testing was such a workout?
A lot of weight to load and unload.
With that load, it took off in about 500 feet, climbed at 1,000 feet per minute, and landed, I'd say, about 750. That's not in the hands of any particularly capable STOL pilot expert or anything. That's just flying. Collin's strip is about 1,300 feet, is that right?
1350, if you want to really stretch it, but 13 is what I call it.
This is the Tundra-sized tail wheel. We did talk about that the fuselage is a little bit longer, which means it may benefit from some larger main wheels, which would allow a slightly larger, higher stance.
Yes, it would. Mm-hmm.
We think it's on the order of, is it 1 degree of pitch difference because
I
of the...
think so, about 1 degree, I believe.
Yeah, let's walk over to the other side. If anybody's seen any of Collin's other 3 airplanes, this looks a lot like it because of the polytone, because of the nice clean lines, the light colors inside. It's almost a lot of the, it's like he's developed the Collin style because he built so many of them.
One thing we might take a look at is the shock struts on the bottom end of those.
Oh,
Bob
yeah.
has added another rod end fitting down there instead of the standard way of doing it.
So now we're running a rod in on both ends, the top and the bottom.
Top and bottom, mm-hmm.
The West Virginia crowd figured that out
Yeah.
a while
Yeah.
back, and I thought it was a pretty clever,
Yeah, pretty clever.
clever idea. So when you adjusted these for the load, we were taking off basically just a pilot and the required ballast
Right.
at, what did we measure, was it 70 inches or
About
so?
70 or 70 and a half, I think, something like that.
Bob is concerned about keeping the landing gear within a certain width tolerance for strength purposes, and that tolerance, he says, is 74 inches. At max gross.
Max gross, mhm.
And at our 3,000 pounds today, we measured 72.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah, so the landing gear was not a limiting factor for us. This is the round shock strut material covered with a plastic streamlined airfoil shape,
Right.
which is kind of the new way going forward to maximize the strength of the shock struts. What about fuel tanks?
Fuel tanks are the standard 50-gallon tanks, and of course it's got the option of doing the long-range tanks, and there's probably a lot of room for maybe at least another, 30 gallons or so up there?
Yeah, so you've placarded this as a 50-gallon capacity,
Right.
and that's with enough of an air gap at the top
Yeah.
that it doesn't overflow when we fill it, which I think is important.
I think that's a good idea.
These caps vent out of the top, and when they vent, they run right down the back of the wing and
A little bit sometimes.
makes a big mess. This engine is a bit thirsty. At takeoff thrust, it's approaching 30 gallons an hour.
Yeah.
We've got a lot more detailed information available soon about what we're finding in performance, but just in round numbers, it's a lot like a Bearhawk 4-place at the same fuel burns.
Right.
You know, down around 10 gallons an hour, it flies at the same speed as our Bearhawk 4-place, which has 185 horsepower, because that's just the thermodynamics of it. You know, you've got a certain amount of energy going in, it's going to produce a certain amount of speed going forward. I stuck a piece of masking tape on the propeller. We're doing some measurements.
Yeah.
Just disregard that, but it sure is a beautiful composite propeller from Hartzell.
Yeah, it is.
I love your fuel gauges, Colin. Tell us about those.
Yeah, the fuel gauges are foolproof and easy to read, and sometimes you can put a little red float ball in there, but they've got the barber pole stripes there, and you can see the refraction of the light going through there. It makes it look different. The angle is very easy to see. You can see at the top we're down to about 20 gallons there.
Yeah.
And you can see the lines start to go different. It's real easy to read.
Back behind there, those lines are all painted the same.
Yeah.
But as the light shines through the fuel, it refracts the lines in an interesting way. I thought that was really cool.
So it works pretty good.
And that's a rigid Schedule 40 clear PVC.
PVC, clear PVC.
With did you have to tap the ends with pipe thread taps?
It's an 1/8 inch pipe thread on the top and the bottom, and those are regular AN 940s or whatever they are for the bottom.
Sure.
Tube, slip over tube.
Did you do your own upholstery, or did you farm that out?
No, this came from Mark Goldberg. Mark
Okay,
Goldberg
good.
has a fellow down in Brazil that did these, I think.
Excellent.
Mhm.
They look pretty good, pretty comfortable too.
They're very nice. It's got the temper foam, whatever it is.
Yeah. One of the changes that you've talked about is the slope of the instrument panel, or the slope of the boot cowl. Tell me more about that.
Well, Bob's thinking, and I don't know what he's probably going to do. Last I talked to him, he's thinking about sloping this firewall back about 2 to 3 inches and raising it up, because you can see right now we've got just a little bit of a dip here. And so that would clean that up a little bit, and also let us move this firewall back some. We can already go back about 2 or 3 inches, but
Sure.
that would also let us move the engine back another inch or two if we needed to.
Mm-hmm. Just eyeballing it, almost makes it, the windshield to me looks a little more sloped or a little more streamlined
Right.
from the side than the four-place. We don't have one parked beside it to see, but
Right. Yeah.
but I suspect that some builders might entertain a taller panel.
Yeah, I expect most of them will. I think, to get a lot of the stuff in there that most people like to see, you're probably going to want to go a little taller.
Yeah,
So having that firewall raised a little bit would help that matter.
sure. And these are 850 by 6 tires, it looks like.
856. It kind of begs to have a set of big bush wheels of some kind on, probably someday.
Sure. I hate there's not going to be an Oshkosh or an AirVenture this year,
that's too
because
bad.
this would be a great booth airplane.
It really would.
Of course, it's a great demo airplane too. To hop in this with 2 people and
Right.
take off in 200 feet, climb at this hugely steep deck angle all the way up 1,500 feet per minute. It's quite a thrill.
Yeah, it's quite a thrill. It's a thrill to hear it fly.
It's your third or your fourth Bearhawk to build.
Fourth Bearhawk, yeah.
Did we keep count of how many other projects you've told me, and it's in the article, but I don't
Well, I
really
did an
remember.
RV-6A, and I've rebuilt an Erotica Champ, and I built my first plane was called a Zippy Sport, which most of you probably never heard of. And I guess that's about it. So that's my 7th project.
Mm-hmm. And you've owned Cessna
Cessna
170, Mall.
170A and Cessna 170B and a Mall.
Yeah.
And a few Champs. Good old Rocket Champs.
Yeah. I suppose if we're going to take some pictures, just to wipe all these bugs I got off there.
Yeah, the bugs.
We've got 10 hours on the airplane so far. It's been really, thankfully, very cool.
Yeah, not that many compared to what we've flown with. So.
I think the cool temperatures are keeping the bugs at bay a little bit.
Might be a time we can get the ballast out of there. Might take a little better picture, you think, or not?
Yeah,
Someday?
yeah. When we get those trash bags full of concrete out, it'll look a little better. We'll take down the GoPro and
Yeah.
get all that.
Definitely get some pictures when the sunlight's out.
Yeah.
Right. All that.
Do you have any tips for Bearhawk builders or builders of anything else?
Well, there's lots of little things. I wish I wrote them all down. Yeah. I have one little tip I was going to share with you. I'll show it to you in the other room in there. It's,
Oh, yeah.
You know those crazy Adel clamps? Getting those things together and
Oh,
holding
yeah.
them together?
Yeah.
Oh, I figured out something. Maybe somebody else already knows about it.
Let's go see what you learned.
Share it with you.
Yeah.
That's a clip nut that we use on our floorboards, and you just squeeze that together, slide that on there. Once you get that over your tube, it holds it together, clamps it together. And then all you gotta do is put your screw in, you can fasten whatever you want to on that.
So do you leave the clip nut in it, or do
Yeah,
you?
just leave the clip nut on there. That's the nut, instead of trying to fumble around
Oh,
putting the nut on the
okay.
backside and the screw and dropping it
Yeah.
and everything, and holding
really
that together
clever.
all the time. Now, I've tried different ways. You can safety wire that together and hold it together. But they make a tool even you can buy, a real expensive tool.
Yeah, but if it fits, it's okay. But
you know, but trying to get that all together, and I've dropped many a nut trying to get the screw on in there and everything, and having your part that you're trying to anchor.
Make it a still picture of that for the bear tracks. That's awesome.
You know, I thought that might work. That's just a monodock clip nut.
Yeah.
And it clamps that together. So,
can you remember any place in the Bearhawk 5 where you might have used something like that?
Well, on those fuel gauges in there.
Oh, yeah.
They clamp to the tubing. And trying to reach behind that and mount that in there and get the screw in place.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I figured out there's got to be a better way to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of hard to keep all that together.
Mm-hmm.
But even in the engine mount compartment, sometimes you use 8L clamps to mount the motor mount or the oil hoovers and things like that.
Cool.
And I just came up with that. So I thought, well, it's worth throwing it out there for what it's worth.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. What else can you think about that we should talk about? Everybody wants to know about the Model 5.
Model 5 is going to be a great airplane, I think. It's going to be something a lot of people can use.
Yeah.
Carry a lot of weight.
I think so too. I think it's exceeded Bob's expectations in the way it's performed, or at least the expectations that he shared with me,
right.
Which I suspect he had some margin in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's doing real good.
Bob's been pretty much directing the flight test program. Raleigh came out and did the first few flights just to shake down, make sure it was handling well. Did some speed envelope expansion and did some CG testing at lighter weights. I was able to come out to visit for a little while, and we started by working towards the forward weight yesterday. We calculated where our weight and balance would be, where that would fall relative to the percentage of chord. Bob gave us the numbers that he said, you know, you want to stay within these limits for the best safety and approach them slowly, and that's what we did. We incrementally moved the CG forward. Collin was out at the airport helping out a lot with moving the CG a little bit at a time towards the forward limit, and each time we would fly around the pattern and then make sure that the airplane still had enough elevator authority to flare well. And we reached Bob's proposed limit, went a little bit further, and it still had authority, so we called it good. And then today we reached further into the aft limit than Raleigh was able to, and we also increased the total weight right up to 3,000 pounds and validated that the airplane flies well. It flies about like our four-place does when we load it up to go to Oshkosh. You can tell it's different, you can tell it's heavier, but it still has very good handling qualities, stall characteristics. So I guess we've been assuming, or I've been assuming in this discussion, that the audience would already know about Bearhawks, which may not be the case because this airplane opens up a new market that the previous Bearhawk line really didn't. You know, you potentially could even get a sixth or a third row of seats for a total of 6, depending on how you space the cabin. But some of the features that it shares with the rest of the Bearhawk line, it has an aluminum sheeted wing. It has fabric covered ailerons and flaps, and part of the reason Bob uses the fabric covering on the ailerons is to reduce their weight. Since they're mass balanced, we want to minimize any weight that we'd have to add twice to balance back out. It has a steel tube fuselage, 4130, with fabric covering on the fuselage and tail surfaces. Bob didn't use fabric on the wings because he wants to very carefully control the airfoil shape and finds that fabric airfoils will flex, and the deflection of the fabric changes the shape of the airfoil and diminishes performance. Well, thank you, Collin, for spending some time on video to tell everybody how you built this wonderful machine. And we'll have more updates and maybe some better pictures out in the sunlight without all the ballast to follow up. But for anybody who'd like to know more, you can get in touch with Mark Goldberg at bearhawkaircraft.com. He can set you up with a kit, a quick build kit, which will take an awful lot of the toil out of building, just leave you the fun parts. And Bob Barrows at R&B Aircraft will be selling plans soon. I don't know that he's said when. He's going to take the information that we've been able to deliver from flight testing and finalize the plans and get those out soon. But I think in the mission, this airplane should really be able to run circles around the 182, wouldn't you say?
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
You have the advantage of a home built being able to create your own parts, not have to have STCs and field approvals and all that sort of thing. Get to have the fun, the education and recreation of building it. Can't think of much else we should
I
say.
can't think of much else. Just go buy yourself one and
Yeah,
get it in the air and let's have some fun.
exactly. And look forward for more
Yeah.
data about the kind of results it's been yielding.
Yeah.